All right, there's a fair consensus that it's 7 o'clock now, so we'll start the meeting. So as usual, if you've got any electronic device, would you please mute it to avoid any feedback? If there are remote participants, would they please keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak? And ideally not to use the camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. The meeting may be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their Swellborough Council or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. So welcome to this extraordinary Cabinet meeting. Welcome to the members of the Cabinet, Deputy Cabinet members, and any other members attending remotely. The following staff are in attendance: the Chief Executive, Larissa Reid, Director of Resources, Lisa Fillery, Monitoring Officer, David Clifford, Interim Head of Legal Partnership, Claudette Valmont, Head of Housing and Community Service, Charlotte Hudson, Head of Regeneration and Economic Development, Joanne Johnson, Head of Planning, James Freeman, Conservation and Design Manager, Simon Algar, Interim Property Manager, Jeremy Pilgrim, Housing Options Manager, Roxanne Shepherd, and Democratic Services, Joan Millard and Billy Attaway. Emergency, as usual, there isn't a planned emergency. In the event of the alarm sounding, everybody must leave the building via the nearest safe available exit and gather at the assembly points at the far side of the car park. And the lifts must not be used in the event of an evacuation. Any officers present at the meeting will aid with the evacuation. It is important that if there's anybody present who is disabled or unable to use the stairs, that is notified. And nobody must leave the assembly point until everybody can be accounted for, and nobody must return to the building until the chairman has informed them that it is safe to do so. So, Jo, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you. Apologies have been received from Councillor Julian Saunders, who is in attendance remotely this evening and therefore will be unable to vote. Thank you.
Okay. Can we approve the minutes of the last meeting? Agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Bonney.
Thank you. On item 5, the Robinsham Conservation Area, I own property there, so I shall leave the meeting for that decision.
Thank you. Please be advised that all items on this agenda are Part B reports for decision by the Cabinet. Okay, before we go into agenda item 5, I'd like to reflect on the fact that this is the last Cabinet meeting before we move to a committee system. The policies that this Cabinet has pursued over the last 3 years have reflected reasons people voted for various parties in the coalition. In every case, those policies will require continuity of purpose and delivery into the next year and for many years beyond. We have fulfilled the commitment made to the public to introduce area committees and now service committees, but we will need to make them work. We have resisted the trend apparently intended before our election to meet government housing allocations through a series of massive garden community developments, but work on the local plan review continues. We've set up the Rainbow Housing Company, whose delivery is a 50-year project. We will continue with a range of town centre and property improvements. And we hope to be spending the next 5 years and more investing in levelling up funds in Sheerness. We will continue to engage with the voluntary sector and with the NHS, and we have one of the best plans for climate change in the country, but that will take a decade to deliver. And we will continue with making a priority out of conservation and heritage, which leads us into agenda item 5. So, Councillor Baldock, would you like to take that forward for us, giving Councillor Bonney the opportunity to leave the chamber? Without necessarily running.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Yeah, this is the latest in the conservation area reviews that we've undertaken. This is part of the groundbreaking heritage strategy that we put forward that has seen a number of improvements across the borough and really getting a move on some proper listings and programme of preserving our heritage. It's also these 2 conservation area reviews we've got tonight reflect the ability of area committees to take elements of the core council's programme and to prioritise them. So these came as a result of money being allocated by the area committees. I think this again shows that this administration has put more conservation area reviews in the last 3 years than had happened in the previous 20. I'd also like to congratulate the officers on this one. As we've seen these conservation area reviews come through before, but it's the officers who, in consultation, decided that they ought to look again at the boundaries. Suggestions have been made to extend the boundaries. And it's that flexibility, that adaptability that has enabled us to come up with an even better conservation area review. So I really like to pay tribute to the adaptability and the willingness of officers to really get on board with this programme, and you can tell that they have a real interest in it. So I'd like to thank our officers. And having said that, I will now hand over to Simon Elgar.
Before you do, I'd just like to join you in that commendation of the officers. So with all those praises going on, Simon, would you like to come in and acknowledge them?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Baldock. It's very much appreciated. I appreciate the support that's been given in terms of taking this work forward from the Cabinet Member and Deputy Cabinet Member as well, and other members that have taken a significant interest, including Councillor Bonney. Yes, I acknowledge the fact that this particular piece of work and related pieces of work at Milstead and Tunstall have been sort of driven forward by particular sort of desire and concerns from the Western Area Committee, and we've been able to take that on board in sort of adapting the Heritage Strategy Programme to take that work forward. Yeah, I mean, it's slightly unfortunate that the changes that we're suggesting to the additional changes that we're suggesting to the boundary of Rodmersham Green Conservation Area weren't picked up at the outset, but rather than sort of turning a blind eye to them, it seems to be the right thing to do to try and pick them up now and just make sure that local residents are happy with them. So hence the recommendation to go back out to planning. Sorry, back out to public consultation to make sure that everyone's happy with those 6 additional changes that we're proposing over and above the changes that were shown in the public consultation document that went out to residents before Christmas. So I commend the recommendation set out in the report, and hope members will be willing to agree to those. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Do any other members have any questions or comments to make? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with all the comments that have been said. Just a tidying up exercise, actually. It says in liaison, in recommendation 4, in liaison with the Cabinet Member, there's a 3-week further consultation period. Should we just also include in there a reference to the chair of a relevant committee?
No, not really, because the Cabinet will exist until the 18th of of May. So Councillor
So it
will
will,
continue to be the cabinet member.
Brill, thank you very much.
Okay. And Councillor Martin and Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to draw attention to the comments of Bredgar Parish Council and fully endorse them. They have cited it as an excellent document setting out in clear terms the importance of these settlements as considered from multiple perspectives, and I think the higher praise indeed could not be received from some of our parish councils. So well done to the officers on that one and to the cabinet member.
Yeah, indeed. Councillor Harrison.
I just thought I'd congratulate the cabinet member for pushing ahead on these reviews, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay.
Okay. So in the minutes, can we have multiple opportunities to congratulate the cabinet member, please? Okay, can we have a proposal then? Councillor Baldock, the seconder. Councillor Palmer. So those in favour of all the recommendations. Okay, that's a unanimous decision.
Councillor Bond back in.
Yes, of course, I was going to do that.
Just get telling Jeremy.
We won't proceed until we have the return of Councillor Bonney, which she doesn't have to run in. You are. You'll be relieved to know that we all agreed with the recommendations for Rodmersham Green. Or maybe you don't, because you're neutral. Right, we'll move on to agenda item 6 then, which is the Tunstall Conservation Area Review. So it's back to you, Councillor Baldock.
Thank you. Not much to add to the previous introduction, other than to just say there is a slight amendment in recommendation 4, where Milstead should read Tunstall. But again, all the previous comments apply, and I forgot to say these people will be able to buy these from the council at cost price, and I think they are absolutely really attractive, informative documents that don't just belong on a shelf, they belong on people's coffee tables. I'm happy to move the recommendations.
You move amongst coffee table circles, of course. I think we all understood that the Milstead reference is a misprint. Anybody else want to comment? Councillor Bonney?
Thank you. Just say, I think it's a great document, reads very well, and it's so lovely to see some of the historic pictures of our villages and neighbourhoods when they do a conservation area review. So well done to all those that pulled it together and to all those that contributed, those locals. So thank them.
Okay, great. So proposer, Councillor Baldock, seconder this time. Anybody else? Councillor Bonney. Those in favour? Excellent, thank you. That's unanimous. So agenda item 7 is the extension of the staying put framework. So this is with you to start with, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Leader. A fairly simple one, hopefully, this time round. As you'll be aware, a couple of years ago, we set the staying put framework with fixed price for works, utilising primarily local builders and trades to conduct the work that is funded through the DFG. This is the period where we look whether we can extend further. The recommendation is to extend further, and again, the builders have, or all the contractors have agreed to maintain that fixed price at what was fixed 2 years ago, primarily because they do enjoy doing the work for us. It is steady work, and they do a good quality job. I think the paper itself is pretty self-explanatory in why we would extend, and I don't think the other options make sense at all. The work that Staying Put does is absolutely phenomenal, and part of the thanks goes to Susan Hughes, the Staying Put manager, who can't be with us this evening, but an excellent job in liaising with those firms and keeping them well in line. So I'm pleased to propose the recommendation.
Thank you. I mean, Susan Hughes has thrown enormous enthusiasm into this over a really considerable period of time. So Councillor Harrison, you indicated.
Thanks, Chair. And of course, she is star of the screen as well. That was a very good series that she was in. Yeah, I was going to say we did agree 2 years ago that if it was okay, there would be an option to extend for 2 years. It is more than okay. Our residents are getting a fantastic service. It really makes a difference. So no hesitation whatsoever in extending.
Okay. Do any of the officers, Charlotte Hudson, do you want to come in and comment? Endorse the view of members that this is an excellent service for our residents?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I fully agree. We did look to see whether it was worth doing a further tender, but as Councillor Martin has already said, we feel that the extension of the current contract framework is the best arrangement to go forward.
Thank you. Chief Executive.
I just want to add the real importance of what Councillor Martin said about fixing the price. Actually, it's very difficult to find a builder at the moment who is able to even quote because the changes in costs are so significant. So to have builders that have fixed the price for 2 years with that level, sorry, to fix the price now with that level of uncertainty is a significant gain for the council. So I just think it's really important that members are aware of that massive part of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right, proposer. So, well, do you want to speak, Mike? Go on then.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to highlight in 2.5, Councillor Martin said that they're local builders. All 9 local builders are in the top 10. And I think this reflects how, when we use local builders, local companies, and which we have, said is important, it feeds back in the economy. It helps keep those local businesses going, and that is a really positive thing. And I'm really glad to see that they're all doing well.
And it justifies training programs, which we want to encourage. Okay, good. So proposer, Councillor Martin, seconder, Councillor Valentine. Okay, those in favour? Thanks very much. Okay, so next agenda item is item 8, which is the BEAM partnership, housing employment support. So this is with you again, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Leader. This one's probably the more complicated of the 2 reports that I've got today in many ways. So I'll give a bit of background. BEAM are the world's first crowdfunding platform for homeless people. They've been going on for a wee while, and the service that they provide does not appear to be matched by anybody else. There doesn't appear to be anyone else offering the same thing. It takes the individual, assesses their needs, produces their own page to help raise funds for specific things. So an example might be an individual who is facing homelessness because they've been made redundant, who wishes to retrain as a HGV driver. They require assistance with gathering a deposit for their private rent, with getting the money for their training, and with some other costs. Those will all be calculated, put onto the crowdfunder, and individuals will donate to that particular person. Once it's raised, everything is sorted, and they are supported through that process by a BEAM worker. It helps people get back into work. It helps people get back into proper housing, secure housing for the long term, and it will assist no end. And it's not just a case of relying on new donations. They already have a core of people who are signed up with monthly donations to BEAM itself. It is a case of a spend to save project. By investing in this partnership, we are anticipating significant savings in temporary accommodation bill in the medium term. This is a pilot. It is a case of something that we want to start out with, see how it goes. We've had several discussions with BEAM. It also links back to that dreadful period we had at the beginning of the year when we were told by the County Council about their cuts to the Kent Homeless Connect contract. As a result of that, we were looking at how we could be more innovative, because we couldn't carry on doing the same things we'd always done and expect a different result. We had to change and adapt. And this, I think, is a positive outcome if we do go ahead with this tonight, which I hope we do. I think it will deliver for some of the most vulnerable people. It will help them to help themselves. And I think it's very much in line with what we're being asked to do from higher up, and positive for others. And I'm going to ask Charlotte to come in because we have got a few items in the report, including the requirement for a waiver, which we were double checking on with legal.
Charlotte, do you want to come in, please?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Martin. Just following on from what Councillor Martin said, really, is that this is a pilot approach. We have sought a waiver to work in partnership with Beam to go forward, to enable us to evidence that this does work. We have done some exploration of other similar projects, and even though there is employment schemes out there and there is other levels of support around homelessness, there isn't this type of package and this intervention going forward. This is why we're very keen to do this. We have clear cohort of individuals that we need to identify and work with, and the team already have a number of people in mind that would be suitable for this programme, that are currently in temporary accommodation or with our prevention team. So I think we're quite confident that this will help us to save funds going forward, either preventing people coming into temporary accommodation or assisting people away from temporary accommodation at an earlier rate than they possibly would have done without this programme.
Thank you. So, Councillor Harrison, you want to come in?
Yeah, when I read this, I thought, oh, this is great. A pilot. You know, we've got to keep trying different things, new things, because the size of the issue, I wouldn't say a problem, the size of the issue is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we just need to keep looking at what else is out there to try and help people. This looks at individuals, looks at people on an individual but a holistic basis. We all know that if you're on the verge of homelessness, there could be a variety of issues and a variety of agencies that need to be involved to deal with those issues. And, you know, we can deal with some, but then we've got to go to you to do this and you to do that and you to do that. I'm thinking drug, alcohol and all the rest of it issues. Whereas Beam's approach is that holistic one. They take you as an individual and they sort all these things around you. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And, you know, I really hope it does work. And they seem to have a bit of a track record. So we've got to try as many things as we can to help the people in our borough, because, you know, most people are a paycheck away from being homeless themselves. Thanks.
Good. Councillor Valentine.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask a little bit more about the model. So Beam have been working with other local authorities in other areas, I understand already. So when people contribute to the crowdfunder, do they contribute to a specific area? So would we get people who crowdfund specifically for these people in Swale, or is it a sort of national pot? And I wondered, do we get local companies and other sort of organisations to contribute, or is it entirely individuals that contribute?
I was hoping someone was going to ask about that, actually. So one of the aspects that local companies will do is actually signing up for the training and making sure that there's a job for them to go to. So, for example, let's say GIST, for example, out of Faversham may well want some HGV drivers. We've got homeless people, or for those threatened with homelessness who want to train to become HGV drivers, they will partner with GIST. GIST will provide them with a job at the end of it, and they'll still be working with Beam to make sure that that employment is actually sustained. It's not just a case of we get you the job and we run away. It is a case of it is sustained employment and we help you stay there so that you stay out of the need of homelessness. And companies can sign in. In terms of the donations, people can choose to go and do a one-off one to an individual, or they can choose to sign up for a monthly. And those, they can select where that goes, is my understanding. One aspect that I suppose I should draw some attention to, because I know there's been some queries about it over this week from other members as well, is the definition of a cashable saving. So there is a difference here. So the cashable saving is the temporary accommodation savings. And that's something that we can measure very specifically. We know that's what's happened as a result of this. There are other savings as well that could be linked, full well, the indirect ones. Let's face it, if someone is employed and they are living in the borough, they are paying council tax in the borough. That's something that they wouldn't be doing if they were in temporary accommodation. There are savings to the Department for Work and Pensions if someone's working in employment where they're not in need of universal credit. There's savings on the health service because they don't, we know that housing is a huge contributor to mental health, and mental health is a huge contributor to physical health. So actually, it really is that holistic element fully round. And in terms of other councils working with this, there are other examples, and I'm going to be really mean and put our chief exec on the spot, because I believe that when our chief exec was at a previous council, that was the first council in the country that worked with Beam. So that may well give us some more information as to just how successful it can be.
Okay, we'll just beam up the chief executive then.
So yes, when I was at Brighton and Hove, we were one of the first councils to work with Beam, because then the founder of Beam came to talk to us. At the time, I have to say I was dubious, because my view was they would be trying to get entrenched rough sleepers off the street, and I thought entrenched rough sleepers have so many more complex needs that wasn't going to be possible. Actually, it was possible in one case, but the cohort that Beam worked with were very much people who could be helped if they did a lot of work around making sure people were drug and alcohol free before they took part. Having the support helped, and actually the outcome from Brighton and Hove was very, very positive. They've since worked with a number of other councils and have gone on to win awards due to the fact that the work they do has a longevity in homelessness prevention, rather than as soon as the intervention stops, the person relapses. Because they're working on skills and getting people, they work a lot on self-esteem, on confidence building, along with the trades, and most of them are trades. What actually happens is people feel able to continue on, and I know of 2 cases where the people that have been helped by Beam have gone on to help others in a different way. So my experience of Beam was very, very early on. They are much more organised now than when we worked with them, but it's exactly the same. It does work on people crowdfunding. The good thing is predominantly, a majority of their money comes from monthly givers, so it isn't a beauty contest, because that was my other concern. Actually, do white people get more crowdfunding than black people, or and that concerned me around that, but it's not like that. A lot of people pay monthly, so therefore there is a much more even split. But there can be, as I say, if a company says we could do that, they could offer to crowdfund for X number of people and then help out. So from my experience of it is it works well. However, every borough's situation is different, and that's why I think a pilot in this area is a good idea. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, look, it sounds like a good idea from several points of view. The value of it, but also the savings on our temporary accommodation costs is also desirable. So would you like to propose, Councillor Martin? And who would like a turn of seconding now? Councillor Harrison. Okay, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, we go on to agenda item 9, which is the one-off project funding, which I promised that we would do a roundup of the one-off funds that we have used over the last 3 years. We've used these, as you know, to make improvements in Swale, especially to provide resilience after the pandemic. So the total investment that we have put into these funds is just under 5 million. You will know that expenditure is outside the basic budget of the council, that has been made possible by the use of dormant reserve funds that we considered rightly should be used for the benefit of local people rather than lying unused in the council's accounts. So the investments are listed in 3 tables, and it's a long list. Some of it's chronological, but if you actually bear down on it and analyze it a bit, there's certain residual themes running through all this expenditure, though this isn't exclusive, but there has been extensive investment in public facilities and buildings, including much needed toilet improvements to make recreation, being out in Swale, a much more convenient, so I didn't mean to say convenient, a much more pleasant experience, and also for people visiting Swale. There's been significant investment in the environment, including a considerable amount of tree planting. There's been investment in our open spaces, especially in play areas and public parks. We've supported community groups. We've backed, with Councillor Palmer's assistance, a lot of public events. We've used funding to protect heritage. We've been able to support the area committees and members' grants. We have made and continue to make improvements to our high streets, and there's quite an element of funding that's gone into helping vulnerable people, especially children, on the Isle of Sheppey. So it's been money well spent. Any comments or questions? So I've got Councillor Baldock, Councillor Bonney, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think this it represents a huge sea change across Swale. These investments, these improvements, and obviously I'm going to talk about the ones that I was behind.
Yes, of course.
But then I wouldn't want to talk about anybody else's because I wouldn't want to take it from them. But some of the things that we've done, we have a TPO register that was unusable and out of date. So we've got in somebody who's actually going to operate a tree preservation order. I think that's a really important benefit there. We're improving the planning enforcement register so that our planning enforcement can be more efficient and more transparent. £70,000 on addressing some seriously neglected churchyards, but are places of respect, are places where people are buried, but they're also places that people like to visit, people like to sit and take a quiet moment, and they're across the borough and they reflect on us. So finally, we're starting to get some real improvements on the churchyards. And again, I think the officers have done a really marvellous job there. We did the East Church War Memorial. It wasn't 10,000, but that was in addition to it. Again, a really important monument that had been left for so long. I was going through some old photos and I found some photos from the Zeros, which showed how long it had been neglected. So a really important improvement. And, I'd like to say towards the bottom, some resources for extra heritage strategy requests. We looked at, there was a piece of work we wanted to do, and there was talk about commissioning it. And I suggested that one of our officers, Jamil, would be quite capable of taking it on herself. And we negotiated that. And I think that just shows how when you support staff and give them the opportunity to do really interesting projects, it gives people the chance to, do things they're interested in. So I think there's some really good projects there, things that, have been neglected for far too long. This administration is starting to play catch up. And I'm not going to forget to mention the artesian whirl at Ore, which I think was really good. And I fill up my bottles of water there when I go down.
Thanks very much. So we'll have Councillor Bonney and Councillor Palmer will be coming after Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much. Bad echo there. Yeah, I think actually this list, especially when you look at the one that talks about High Street Fund, that's comprehensive in terms of the funds that are allocated to it, but in terms of the works in the High Street, we've pulled in some resilience funding spending, but also it's the working in partnership that the officers have undertaken. So there's a lot of work around removing street junk, removing telephone boxes, all that sort of stuff. The stuff that's really painful to do, that is included in, I suppose, the staffing. That's the work they've undertaken there. I do want to mention that staffing number will be slightly different because we have had, obviously, those were 2 officers on a short-term contract, and one has left and one will be leaving shortly. So there will be some money, hopefully, Lisa can tell me, there will be some money that will be unspent, for which I have my eyes on it for Faversham, because everyone will go, well, their spend's not as high as the other towns, but I think anyone who looks around the towns will say, actually, Sheerness and Sittingbourne have needed far more work than the lovely town centre in Faversham, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't get the spend. But for Sheerness, there's been additional Section 106 monies, and obviously on St Michael's Church, which is the largest chunk out of the Sittingbourne one, we've just got planning permission. So I think it is a really comprehensive list of stuff that's been done, and people may not say at first, oh, has it made much difference? But I think you start getting an overall effect on people that it's a nicer environment to be in. So I think it's been very good, and I'm very grateful to all the officers who behind the scenes have worked very hard to make sure these projects are, some of them are completed, but others are, part of the way through. Yeah.
Thanks for that. And I do observe as time goes on, you're getting better and better at hanging hats. Councillor Martin.
I'll try not to hang any hats. I just think we have to look at this in the round as well. This represents £5 million. £5 million, it's worth saying twice, that's been reinvested into our communities, that was sat dormant in a bank account, earning sod all interest, doing absolutely nothing for the people of this borough. Now it's being used for doing good. From Sheerness to Laysdown to Painters, Forstall to Kemsley, every part of the borough has seen something from this. Every part of the borough has had an improvement, whether it be repairs to artesian wells, whether it be tree planting, whether it be community halls that needed a bit of TLC, whether it be getting solar panels on roofs, whether it be making sure that our festivals can go ahead after COVID, whether it be getting street furniture painted and making our town centres an attractive place to be. It's touched every part of the borough, it's touched every portfolio, and it has been a positive win for the community over the last few years. And I think not only can we as a cabinet be proud of that, I think members of this council can be proud of it. And my word, officers should be proud of it, because I know how much work and time and effort they've put in with some of the late nights trying to get stuff complete.
As you say, extra work. Councillor Palmer.
I think Councillor Martin's quite right, particularly with the hard work and the effort that the officers have put in. Who would have thought, when we were all elected in 2019, what a change we could possibly make? And we all started out with great ambitions, and then COVID came along and all our plans had to change. But what we have done is ensure that our community is stronger going forward. As Councillor Martin highlighted, whether it's community centres, supporting a kitchen for the elderly. We've also looked at the health of our community with the work on the climate change and other things. And I think one of the Sheppey Community Bus, what a fantastic project. And it was proud that this council could support it, along with many other organisations who did support. Youth organisations, Councillor Harrison's work with play areas, getting children out and about. We talk about obesity as being a major problem coming down the road that will cripple the health service in years to come. We need to tackle such things. And I think what we've done will put us instead, or put the borough instead, for the next 20 to 30 years, because it's an investment, as Councillor Martin said, in the community halls, in community centres. And you know, I think we've achieved what we set out to achieve. Even so, I don't think until we looked at it, we quite realised how much we actually achieved. Because I was quite surprised reading through all this, and I think even going through a pandemic and making sure that our community had the resilience to cope with that, work done in the very early stages that by my deputy at the time, Councillor Saunders, working with food banks with Angela and Hannah and the community team. Some of the things we put together there, I'm sure, are still being used and will be needed, unfortunately, for the years to come. And I think what we've done, we've used public money to support our community to bring it forward, to improve it going forward. Thank you.
Very happy to. I think the climate emergency and the environment area generally has benefited from a lot of this funding. I particularly like to make the point that all these projects, require a lot of work in order to get them up and running and monitor them and look after them. And there are a number of expenditure items on this where we've taken on officers in order to be able to do that. And I'd particularly like to commend the decision to appoint a climate and ecological emergency project officer, and what a huge difference that made to our ability to be able to deliver on those projects in that area. I'm proud of what we've been able to achieve in the climate and ecological area.
Okay, Councillor Baldock.
Yeah, thank you for letting me come back. I wanted to speak at the end because although it's not on the papers, we shouldn't forget the Brexit fund. This bit of money that the government gave to councils that was just sitting there with no plans, and we decided we would actually use it to make our communities resilient in the event that they needed to survive Brexit. And we helped several village halls come up to scratch so that they could store food and medicine in the event of an emergency. And we've also got new defibrillators, helped get new defibrillators across the borough. And Debbie's been really busy on that. And I think that's, there will be lives saved as a result of that, of money spent for the community, not just sitting in a bank. And I think that's, it shouldn't be forgotten.
Thanks again. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I suppose one thing I would say is that we haven't worked in a silo, because numbers of people have said, and Angela did this. And one of the things that springs to mind that, we all worked on, but actually comes under Tim, was the fuel and water poverty officer, which was on the bus, which was, double page spread in the Daily Mirror. I mean, that person is making a real difference to people out there who are desperate in our communities. So there are an awful lot of people who, I don't know how they'd have coped without some of these things that we've managed to put in place. But obviously we can't have them there forever, but while we can have them there, they're making a real positive difference to our communities. Thanks.
Excellent. A lot of you have said it, but let's say it again. We wouldn't have been able to deliver so much without officers actually going an extra mile and several extra miles, and not just once, but several times, marathons in some cases. So, Chief Executive, please note that. Right. Do we agree to note this? I propose that we note it, and anybody like to second that we note it? Yeah, Councillor Baldock. Right, we move on to agenda item 10, which is the local plan panel. Councillor Baldock.
Okay, the recommendations for approval or for noting on pages 134 and a little bit on 144. you've seen the Robinsham Green and Tunstall Conservation Area reviews already. The main issue was to note the main issues, responses to the Reg 18. And that's it really. We had a long debate, and luckily longer than the previous one. And yeah, I'd recommend that we note them.
So the recommendations for approval proposed by Councillor Baldock, seconded by Councillor Martin. Agreed? Okay, good. So we come on to agenda item 11, and you've got the report. You've also got the exempt blue paper. In some cases it's mauve paper, but that take it as blue. If you are minded to refer to any of that, then we will have to, you are, okay. So at that point.
Point of order, Chairman.
Yes, go on.
Before you went on, I was going to say, can we have 5 minutes to read the papers? We were only given them when we came in. No, we have to sign them and put them back.
Look, if any member has not been able to read the blue paper, I'll give you 5 minutes. Okay, so take 5 minutes. Yeah, of course. Yes, we have to vote to exclude the press and public and any members who are not members of the cabinet, because we're dealing with the exempt item. Agreed? That doesn't matter. We're going to, we don't know when a member's going to. Okay, as long as we've removed present public, the members present can stay, because they've actually seen the blue paper. So it's, All right, have 5 minutes to have a good look, because this is really quite important.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, what?